Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to this tutorial series about making a blog with Blazor WebAssembly. This is kind of a spontaneous tutorial series. I have no script or any preparation for this tutorial series. It's just there hopefully to help you getting started with Blazor WebAssembly. So I'd say we dive right in. We create a new project with Visual Studio 2019 Community Edition. I'm using the preview edition here, but you could totally use the non-preview, the released version of Visual Studio. I'm using the released version because with this one you can use the .NET 5 framework, which will be the combination of .NET Core 3.1 and the older .NET Framework 4.8, I guess, and then this will be the only .NET Framework available. But nevertheless, we will do this with 3.1 because .NET 5 is still in preview mode. It is around the corner, but let's use .NET Core 3.1. Okay, anyways, let's call this thing Blazor blog maybe and create this new project. As you can see, there is the option to use Blazor Server App and WebAssembly. If you don't know the difference, just really short, Blazor Server App, as the name implies, is only running on the server, and everything the user sees is kind of a window to the server. It is, let's say, it's streamed to the client. This is done via WebSockets, as you can see here with Signal R. So all the web service calls and everything, it's all done with WebSockets, and the client has no work whatsoever. This is the big advantage, of course, but the big disadvantage is if you have a web application that has lots of users, maybe your blog will be so successful that you have 100k users every minute, then the server has to manage all these users. Maybe your users can log in to your web application, write blog posts by themselves. Then the server has to manage all this. But with Blazor WebAssembly, it's the typical web application where you have a client and the client is doing the client work. You have a server, a web service with web API, and maybe also entity framework. This will be what we are doing in this course or in this tutorial series. And yeah, it's just the typical model. So we will use WebAssembly. Here you have the option, as you can see, to use .NET 5, and then on the bottom right you see that I have Preview 7 installed, but let's just use .NET Core 3.1. We don't use authentication here. You could do that, but in this case we would have to use the Microsoft identity or .NET identity. I'm not sure about the correct name, but it is identity server, and I think this is just too much. And that's why we can do this by ourselves with with JSON Web Tokens and token authentication later on. We can configure this for HTTPS, that's all right. And then we will use ASP.NET Core hosted, because in this case, we already have a server project in our solution, and this is nothing else than a web API, but we'll see this in detail when we are building this thing. Yeah, lots of talk. I think we're already kind of 3 minutes in. As I said, there's no script or anything, but I still hope this thing will be helpful for you. All right, let's have a look at the Solution Explorer first. As you can see, we have 3 projects here: the client project, the server project, and a shared project. And the shared project, this is already one thing I really like about Blazor. You can, if you have a little experience with web development in .NET Core or .NET, and maybe building a client with any kind of JavaScript framework like Angular, for instance, then when you're communicating with a web service, usually the web service would have something like a models folder where you have your user model, for instance, and then you need the same model in JavaScript, or well, you should use it if you want to use a strong or you want to use strong typing, and then when you're using TypeScript, for instance, with Angular, you would create your model, the same model in Angular. You would have to do that, or you create your DTOs, your data transfer objects. Yeah, lots of buzzwords here, sorry about that. Anyways, what you can do here now with Blazor is you create your model here in the shared project, and then the server project and the client project can use these models here. So you only have to define your model once and you can use it everywhere. Okay, so I would say before I explain every single file in detail, let's just run this thing. And there is the option to run it here with this play button. You can choose a browser. Maybe you want to start the Internet Explorer. I don't know about that. Let's try it here with Chrome. And with Visual Studio, again, you can start it that way with this play button. And then it takes some time. And the advantage here is, it's on the other screen. Okay, it's loading and now it's running. Beautiful. This is the default Blazor web application, the example application. You already see that there are some implementations here. We can use a counter with a button and the counter goes up. And we already have a connection to a web API. When I open the console, for instance, then in the network tab, let's refresh this and only use the calls. You can see here, let me make this a bit bigger. Oh, great. Okay, you can see here that we have actually a call to a web API. This is the URL. And here you see the data as JSON. Beautiful. This works out of the box. And now let's have a look at the code. We go back to Visual Studio. And here you see the client with the page counter. And this is actually the whole logic of the counter page. You see some HTML. And here you see this little thing here, which is a variable in a code block. So you can actually use a code block. You could also use a code behind file if you don't like it that way, meaning HTML and C# code in one file. You could just use HTML in the Razor file and then also create a code behind file if that's more something that you would like. Okay, then we have a default HTML button, and then we have some kind of event, but it's not some kind of. This is event handling done in Blazor. Add and then on click. This is the on click event of the button, and then we call this method here, and this method does nothing else than just increasing the counter, and this is data binding. So the variable is increased, and we see that change in the HTML file. And then the other example is this thing here, the typical weather forecast. We have some HTML stuff, and here we see some C# code inline in the HTML code for each in this example. And what you can see here is that in the code block we have an array of forecasts, of weather forecasts, and then we have an onInitialized method, which is part of the Blazor component lifecycle, because a Razor file is nothing else than a Blazor or Razor component. Let's say it's a Razor component. I think this is the correct term. And we already have a web service call here done with this thing here, the HTTP object, which is injected via dependency injection. It's of the type HTTP client. It's the HTTP instance, the object here, and then we call get from JSON async with the weather forecast type, and the URL is weather forecast. And to see the server side of this, we just go to the controllers, and here we see all the example weather forecasts. And this is actually the route here, just the controller, the name of the controller, which is this term here, everything that comes before controller, and then since this is an HTTP GET we are doing, we call this get method here and get random weather forecasts. And the model, as I already mentioned, is here in the shared project. So these are all the properties of the weather forecast. Okay, this is everything about the example project. I hope it wasn't too much. This was just to explain the first bits, the first little steps in Blazor. What I like to change when I'm creating a project with Blazor is already the project file of the server project, because it is great that you can do some debugging directly here. As you can see, I can set a breakpoint here, for instance. Let's not do it here. Let's do it in the function. And maybe, or no, let's say we do this in the weather forecast. So for instance, we go to the fetch data component and we say, I want to make this call. Remember, this is the client code. And then we go to the server code and also go into the get method. So I have two breakpoints here, client and server. And when I now go back to the application, I should see that we are here in the server code, and I thought that the client code will also be stopped, but it seems I am wrong. I don't know, maybe we're coming back here. Let's try this with the counter. As I said, no preparation, no script, so you will see me fail, maybe a lot, and you will see me debugging. Okay, here this breakpoint is not hit. Okay, that's not nice. But let's say we move on. Let's go back to Visual Studio. Fetch data, weather forecast. Okay, maybe we can do something else. I'm not sure why it won't hit this. Oh, now, okay. Maybe something wasn't really compiled. I don't know. Oh, it was because the debugger was stopped, I guess. Let's test that again. We go to the counter. Oh, come on. And now you see that this thing, so this is client code. Continue. And then we call the method. Let's continue again. Yeah, and here the breakpoint is hit. Let's continue this. Let's try this again. I don't know why it stops here, but anyways, you can see that you should be able to debug the client code and the server code at the same time. Anyways, I still like to run my Blazor apps in another way when I build a Blazor app. Let me just remove the breakpoint here. All right. So what I do is I use the package manager console, this thing right here, because I'm used to doing this when I create backends with .NET Core, for instance, in Visual Studio Code. You would use the terminal with the command .NET Watch run. But we do this in a second, because when we do it now, the server app or the server project would be started. But the thing is, with .NET Watch run, the watch means that when you change the code, the application will rebuild itself. But the problem is when I change a code, when I change the client code, it won't do that. It won't recognize any change. So what we can do is we just include the client project for that. And we can do that by adding another item group like that. And then we say watch includes, and then we go a folder up and say client, and then Razor, because in essence the client code are the Razor components. So now I save this, and now what I can do is I first have to go to the correct directory, because now I'm not in the correct directory. I have to go to Blazor blog, And then as you can see, we have 3 projects here, 3 folders, client server and shared. So I switch to the server. Here I am at the correct path, and now I can say .NET watch run. And now the building process is started. And we get lots of errors. That's because there is another .NET task running. So let me just go to the task manager and just end any .NET host task. I know you can't see it right now, but in essence, when you see something like that, there should be something running on the same port. I guess it tells me that, yeah, only one usage of each socket address, cannot bind port 5001. So this just means, as I said, you see me failing. So there was another process running from any kind of other stuff I did before. So let's try that again. Maybe clean this. So .NET watch run, and now I hope this works. Yes, great. Okay, so you see that there are 2 addresses where this is running. You can change the addresses, of course. You can see that in the, no, not in the app settings. You can see that in the launch settings JSON. And as you can see here, this one is the application URL when you do it with .NET Watch Run. But when you're using the play button here with IIS Express, it is actually this URL that is used. Just for your information. Okay, now this thing is running. What I can do now is go back to Chrome or open another Chrome window and then just go to localhost 5001, and here is my application. Okay, and when I go to fetch data, for instance, this thing is running. Now I'm not able to debug, but to be honest, it's not that bad that I can't do this, because still I can log stuff, or I don't know, it's not that necessary for now, but later, of course, if there are strange bugs, you can still start it with the play button and then debug. But anyways, in the console you get lots of information if something is wrong, and then you can try to fix this thanks to the error messages you see in the console. But what I wanted to tell you here, or what I wanted to show you here, is that you see nothing is running here, no profiler, no nothing. I can just develop and the application is running. And now, for instance, if I change that and say, okay, give me 7 forecasts, as you can see here, it recognizes that a file was changed and this thing was rebuilt, and then I just have to refresh, and now I get 7 forecasts. And the same thing now works for the client. So for instance, let me change that again, back to 5, although it's not important at all, but you know, I just want to fix this. And in the counter application, let's say I want to increase the counter by value 2. It recognizes the change as well. I have to reload the page, click me, and it increases by the value of 2. Beautiful. So this is actually the whole preparation I do when I create a new Blazor WebAssembly application. And yeah, the next thing actually would be to build a blog, right? So as I said, no script, but what do we need actually? Maybe we start with something like the navigation, and the navigation can be found right here. A Blazor app consists of a main layout. Here is the Nav Menu, which is another Razor component. And here is the body, meaning any route we are entering. And when there is a route that matches any component, which is marked as a page with this thing up here, like page counter, then this whole content here is rendered in the, where was it? In the it's gone, in the body part of the main layout right here. Okay, but let's see the Nav menu. So the Nav menu is another component, and you can access it here. And as you can see, there are already some things prepared for us. We have nav links, which are other components provided by Blazor, and with a nav link you can access other pages. Simple as that. As you can see here, this is the counter page and this is the fetch data page. Now we've got the home page right here, which is nothing else nothing but the index here. Hello world, welcome to your new app. And we can change this thing, for instance, welcome to my blog. And we can say, here are my latest posts. Enjoy. Remove this. And then down here, we could create or use another Razor component to display our posts. When we save this, you see that this thing is recognized. So we go back to the home page and reload this whole thing. And we see the change. Isn't that great? And to use now your posts, actually, we can create another page. Component, another component, because I'd like to display the posts on the home page, the index, and since this is then a shared component, we create a new component right here. So add Razor component, call this, let's say, blog posts. Yeah, let's use blog posts. Not that important. Okay. And now to see some posts, it would be nice to have some available, right? So let's start to create another model, which is a blog post. And we add a new class for that in the shared project. Call this blog post. We make this thing public. And now what do these things need? We add some properties, which is an ID, for instance. Again, you see there's a built-in snippet prop. So just hit prop and then tab. Then we have a title, let's say. We have the content. Maybe what I'd like to add is some kind of description. We have the author of this thing, and then also date time, just date created, date time now by default, and this thing kind of something like is published, which let's say it's automatically published. And also we add something like is deleted, so you won't really delete them, it's just a soft delete. Okay, so we have an ID, a title, a content, description, and so on. Let's save this and go back to the where is it, blog posts component. And let's say now here we have also a property in the code block. This is a list of blog posts. How did I no blog post. All right, okay, that's nice. And this property is called blog posts, and this is a new list of blog posts like that. And Visual Studio doesn't know what's going on here. Usually it would recommend using directive here, but okay, this is not working, so we do this by hand. We have Blazor blog shared, come on, blog post, or actually just shared, and then this should work. Okay, what's going on here? Blog posts, member names cannot be the same. Oh yeah, that's not good. Okay, so we just call them posts. Why not? And maybe we add some already. So we have a new blog post. I don't care about the ID, so title, a new tutorial about Blazor, and a description. This is a new tutorial showing you how to build a blog with Blazor. Okay, description, that's it. And then again another post, so we have two blog posts, title, my first blog post, description, hi, this is my new shiny blog. All right, enjoy. Okay, that's it, I guess. Hope everything is right. So we have some posts available, and now we can display them. I'm really not good at HTML and CSS stuff, so let's try that. What we can do is here use a for each and use the posts from below, and then access any of the properties. So we have for each var post in posts, we create a div, and here we just display the title using post title, and then we add another div, post description, like that, and maybe surround this by another div, that. And I know you should use classes, but I don't care, I'm using styles here. Add a margin of 20 pixels maybe. Okay, and that should be it, I guess. So let's save everything. By the way, I'm hitting Ctrl K and then S to save everything, reload it. Let's see. Okay, we have no post. Oh yeah, I forgot something. I forgot to add this component, of course. So in the index razor, we go back, and now we can just add Blazor, not Blazor, blog posts. There it is. Great. So we don't have to open or close it. It's just, you can use it like that. All right. App is rebuilding. It started, and now refresh this. And here are our blog posts. Here are my latest posts. Enjoy a new tutorial about Blazor. But I thought that the margin would work at least. So let's inspect this. Margin 20 pixels. What did I do wrong? I called this styles, but it should be style, yeah. So let's fix this real quick. Okay. Much better. Okay, and since this is a title, maybe we can say H3. I don't know how big this is. Let's see. Refresh. A new tutorial about Blazor. My first blog post. Great. Okay, that's something, I guess. And maybe we're already half an hour in. I'd say we stop here, and I hope this was helpful for you. Please tell me in the comments if I should go on. As I said, this is really spontaneous. I don't have any kind of script, anything. I don't know how this blog should look like, but when you're telling me that this is something for you, this is helpful and you like it, please press the like button, maybe even subscribe to my channel. And yeah, then I would continue with the series and build a complete blog with, yeah, I'd say with even authentication, so you can log in as an author. We would have different authors, maybe even a role-based authentication, so some authors can change all posts or articles and some authors don't. But you see the users, we use Web API, we use Entity Framework with SQLite. So this would really be cross-platform, and you can build this with your Mac or even on Linux. Yeah, just tell me. I would be really happy to see any comment, and if you think this sucks, then tell me that as well. Then I would stop doing this. Okay, have a great day. Happy coding. Thanks for watching.